General Motors and Formula One have agreed to enter the sport as an 11th team that would drive its first season with one of the current engine manufacturers. But what is even more interesting is that they provide 2 seats for drivers who have been under the radar in the past couple of months. While the focus would be primarily on the American talents like Herta and O'Ward, it's been reported that the team is looking to sign a veteran to guide them in the right direction. And Ricciardo, given his popularity in the USA, is on the shortlist of Cadillac. Can we see the Aussie making a comeback? And if so, will it be in a competitive manner? What has been brewing for so long has finally happened. We will have an 11th team, and while it's under strange circumstances, Cadillac and General Motors are entering without the official presence of Andretti. The announcement that Mario Andretti, the former Formula One champion, will be the director of Cadillac's F1 operations goes to show that they've likely worked on a solution that is profitable for both Formula One and General Motors as well. Throughout the Las Vegas GP, Wolff was adamant that if the new team is an engine manufacturer, then it changes the entire picture and point of view from the FOM's side. And when talking about it more, the Austrian said, "We have an obligation, a statutory obligation as directors to present the standpoint that is best for our company and our employees, and we've done that so in the past." I think if a team can add to the championship, particularly if GM decides to come in as a team owner, that is a different story. As long as it's creative, that means we're growing the popularity of the sport, we're growing the revenue of the sport, then no team will be against it. So I am putting my hope in there. And it has been proven officially by Formula One with the statement that General Motors have done more than enough over the course of the year and have achieved milestones that are sufficient to see them being the 11th team on the grid. Of course, all of this might put Andretti under the bus because he did resign as the CEO of Andretti Global, but him being put as the director of Cadillac goes to show that nothing of this would have been possible without him. When talking about the 11th team on the grid, F1 said in an official statement, Formula One has maintained a dialogue with General Motors and its partners at TWG Global regarding the viability of an entry following the commercial assessment and decision made by Formula One in January 2024. Over the course of this year, they have achieved operational milestones and made clear their commitment to brand the 11th team with GM and Cadillac, and that GM will enter as an engine supplier at a later time. The last sentence is what makes the greatest argument for Cadillac to enter the sport, as it's always good business-wise for the sport to have more engine manufacturers because the competition ramps up, and there is no question that teams would have to be careful about the power shift that Cadillac is likely to bring. Mark Roos, the president of GM, has spoken highly of the entrance of General Motors into the sport, saying, "It's an honour for General Motors and Cadillac to join the world's premier racing series, and we're committed to competing with passion and integrity to elevate the sport for race fans around the world." Cadillac themselves said that Mario Andretti will be appointed as the director of their operations because, if we're being quite honest, had it not been for his son Michael, none of this would have happened in the first place. But the internal changes in Liberty Media and the dislocation of Greg Maffei, the former CEO, as well as the latest election results, have gone on to pave the way for Michael to be now present in the sport, although under different terms that maybe he would have preferred. When talking about it, Mario said, "My first love was Formula One, and now 70 years later, the F1 paddock is still my happy place. To still be involved at this stage of my life, I have to pinch myself to make sure I am not dreaming." We are yet to see what role his son Michael has in the team, but it's likely that it will be something more internal or maybe even a team principal, given the fact that he's been the one pushing to make an entrance in the sport, as Andretti has already used the aero department of Toyota that is located in Cologne, Germany, for the 2026 regulations. There have been reports that the chassis of 2026 has already undergone the testing phase, and all of this leads us to a very interesting period in which we're going to see 22 drivers on the grid after quite a long pause. And of course, the next question that needs to be discussed is the drivers pair up. probably the most entertaining fact about having an 11th team on the grid is that 2 more seats are going to be opening up, and given the fact that we have plenty of drivers who would be eager to kill to drive in this sport, it's going to be interesting to see whether someone will make a comeback or Cadillac will choose to go in their own separate way with 2 rookies. But so far, early reports are stating that Ricciardo is the runner-up, who should expect a call from Cadillac, because even though he's not American, he's the type of driver that you'd definitely love to have on your team, especially if you're from the USA. The popularity of the Aussie is unmatched in the States, and we know that Red Bull wanted to use him as an ambassador on the North American continent due to that factor. Now imagine what influence he would have as a starter on the All-American team. It's safe to say that Ricciardo's exit from the sport was one of the most painful ones that he could have endured, even though he knew this scenario was coming. However, the entrance of General Motors is now changing things to a big extent. 2 more seats are opening on the grid, and while the team will be focusing on promoting American talent such as Colton Herta, they will be putting their eye on Daniel Ricciardo as well, due to his knowledge as a veteran in the sport. Any new Formula One team would kill to have Ricciardo on their side, because you're just entering the sport, and obviously the greatest influence would be made by Daniel, who said that he can never say no to this sport, and while he might try other categories, the focus will always remain on Formula One. However, it is worth noting that Ricciardo's recent form wasn't necessarily one with which he could brag, and that is something that brings a bit of insecurity when it comes to Cadillac's tenure. Of course, they are starting from zero, and that means they're not really willing to risk it all with 2 rookies who would definitely be more crash prone and unable to extract the feedback needed to develop the car in the right direction. Nevertheless, it's likely that Andretti, who has been confirmed to be the director of Cadillac's operations when it comes to Formula One, will likely focus on the pattern that was promoted by Audi as well. 1 veteran driver and 1 youngster who will boost the interest from the American side. There are, of course, other veterans like Bottas who are also available to be signed, and you could even include Vettel and bring in the 4-time world champion back from retirement, but none of them have the popularity that Ricciardo does in the USA. At the end of the day, we're talking about a team who will draw American money, endorsements and viewership, so they have to look at what's best for those factors as well. Apart from Ricciardo, there are 2 other drivers who are more or less guaranteed the spot if the team doesn't get to sign the Aussie from 2026 onwards. They are Colton Herta and Herta and O'Ward. We know how highly Andretti has spoken about Herta when the talks about entering the sport as an 11th team heated up, and the fact that they've collaborated in the IndyCar 500 is also a huge indicator about the potential F1 future of Herta. When Gasly announced that he was departing AlphaTauri for Alpine, Red Bull tried to sign Herta under curved circumstances because he didn't have the super license at that time to compete in the sport, which goes to show that the interest for the American driver is extremely high. All he needs to do is continue with the upward form and prove to everyone that he has what it takes to be the leader of this team, whether he would have Ricciardo or O'Ward next to him. There are other curveballs, of course, that we can never say no to, such as Franco Colapinto, because of his strong performance in 2024 that has been overshadowed a bit with the latest crashes, but nevertheless the Argentinian driver has shown that he can deliver strong results, and with competitive machinery he would definitely be one of the top candidates to be put in one of the driver's seats. With all this in mind, do you think that Cadillac will bring any value to the sport? And if so, do you think that the only reason they were let in was the engine backup from General Motors? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're interested in Verstappen's latest bombshell on Norris and Hamilton, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.